You're listening to Parasearch Radio, news, views and reviews from the world of the paranormal from across the UK and beyond. Find us on Facebook, Twitter and the World Wide Web. Parasearch UK Radio. Parasearch Radio, broadcasting to the UK and beyond.
The views and opinions expressed by presenters and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Parasearch Radio or its affiliates and sponsors. Listener discretion is advised. You're listening to Kerry Greenaway and Mark Manley on the Dark Mirror Paranormal Show, only on Parasearch Radio.
Ooh, we're a bit glitchy on the old jingle tonight. Good evening and welcome to the Dark Mirror Paranormal Show. My name is Kerry Greenaway and tonight I'm joined just by one lovely Mr. Carl Hutchinson. Good evening, Carl.
Good evening, Kerry. How are you doing tonight?
I'm not too bad, thank you. Not too bad at all.
Welcome to the Dark Mirror Show, everybody.
Yeah, a different one tonight, everybody, from our normal one. Now, the last couple of weeks we've been talking about conspiracy theories, and tonight we're going to be looking at, how should we put it, the mother of all conspiracy theories?
I think this is probably one of the most contentious, the most adapted, the most one that everybody has a different theory to it, and that is the sad assassination of JFK.
It is, yeah. And like you say, it's so involved, this particular conspiracy theory, isn't it? Because at the end of the day, it's politics, everybody. So it does get very, very involved. Now, JFK, John Fitzgerald Kennedy, was a very different kind of president for America, wasn't he?
He was indeed. He obviously came to power. He'd only been in the job for a small period of time. And in that small period of time, he shook up the apple cart, so to speak. He was direct thinking. He wanted to change the way the government did stuff. He wanted to change the way the USA was looked at by other countries. He wanted to clean up certain areas of the government, clean up certain areas of the service, and him and his brother Bobby were looking at also doing stuff as well. So he sort of hit the road running big time in his early couple of months of his presidency.
He certainly did. I mean, when you look at speeches he makes, he's always talking about solution and resolution, isn't he? He always wanted to go the diplomatic route rather than the military route. Now, bearing in mind at the time you had the Cold War with Russia was going on. Then you also had Cuba and Castro.
Was obviously still associated with the Russia and the Cold War because obviously the links between Russia and Cuba and the whole failed Bay of Pigs scenario that happened during his early part of the presidentship.
You have Vietnam kicking off. And about American involvement in Vietnam War all going on. And he also was taking on the mob, wasn't he? Like the mafia. Yeah.
Him and his brother wanted to basically look at and organised crime, or as just a generic term, the mob, the mafia, and how they had influences in the government, how they had influences all over the America into day-to-day lives, such as running businesses, running teams, as they called it, like workers unions. So the Teamsters, and they wanted to look at that, and they wanted to basically mark their own stamp by not crushing is the wrong word, but stamping out some of the mob's connection and the mob's power over certain industries.
So basically, he's got quite a little pot of crap that he's having to try and deal with. It's a very fine balancing act, and they're all kind of intertwined with each other, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. He was literally, he wasn't just focusing on one area, he was focusing on a lot of areas, and he wanted to basically make his mark by basically ridding the US of certain elements that were happening in at that particular time, because it was a very difficult time he sort of came to power in. Like you said, you had the Cold War and the various different links between Russia and Cuba. You had internal fighting between the different parties and the mob influence and everything like that. So it was a very, very difficult time, and he was trying to basically make his mark. And who knows what the guy could have done if he hadn't been sadly assassinated back when he did. Because if he'd have lived, who knows how America would have turned out and what he would have then carried on to do, because it was a very short period of time between him taking over, respectively, to sadly when he got assassinated on the 2nd of November 1963.
Yeah. Now, this is the backstory behind everything that's going on. So there's a lot of motives for why or who would want to kill the president.
Mm-hmm.
But the main storyline is basically you had this weird little character called Lee Harvey Oswald take umbrage, take yourself up to the 6th floor in the book depository, fire off 3 shots. Fire off 3 shots, kill the president. Lone gunman theory. Mm-hmm. But at the time, post-death of the president, only 29% of the American population actually believed in the lone gunman conspiracy. 52 people, in the lone gunman theory, and then 52% actually believed in the conspiracy.
Yeah.
And, but that has flipped a huge amount now, hasn't it?
I think it has flipped an awful lot, because when you look at the various different, we're going to call them conspiracy theories. Mm-hmm. There's multiple different conspiracy theories behind what people think happened to who was behind the assassination. But like you say, the main conspiracy theory is, could a lone gunman could he have committed this crime? The thing that I'd also like to point out, the lone gunman conspiracy didn't happen straight away.
Right.
Because there was, obviously at the time when it initially happened, there was all these different types of reports. Different things were coming. Different contradictive witness statements saying if the shots came from here, came from there, came from elsewhere. They saw different people, blah, 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 blah. And obviously Lee Harvey Oswald, I know it's sort of, if you look at the time frame, it sort of happened very, very quickly that he became a prime suspect, etc. But it was still several hours after the assassination that this sudden lone gunman element came to it. Because obviously it was mass confusion at the time.
Yeah.
But once you then start looking into it, and obviously the Warren report and everything like that happened afterwards, these areas started to become clear to people where the conspiracy theories started to creep into it. Because at the end of the day, when it initially happened, sadly, there's a person died, and it's a president. they then have to then go through their motions, etc., and follow protocol, etc., and the announcement, etc. So the everything behind the scenes before we even got into the conspiracy theories was happening in there. But when you look at those individual events that happened during the event, and you look at them again in more detail, and then you look at other areas of it, that's when the conspiracy theories started to creep into it.
That's right. There's so much of it didn't fit, and it, even at base point of impact, I suppose, as it were, there were still contradictions going on within witness statements, as you say. Now, 1 week after President Kennedy's death, we'll call it at this point, the Warren report was commissioned by President Lyndon, as you said. Now, that was 1 week after the assassination. That took 10 months of investigation, and that actual Warren report backed up the lone gunman theory, didn't it?
It did, yeah. The overall, because obviously the Warren report is huge.
Yeah, I can imagine.
You look at the footage when they eventually presented their findings, and it was volume after volume after witness statement after witness statement.
Yeah.
And theories and government intelligence and this, that, and the other, and it was huge. But some of the things that started to creep into the Warren report, which the Warren report didn't want to know about, they tried to present it because obviously they had people doing for it and against it in it presenting to the Warren Commission. They presented certain aspects which were ignored by the Warren Commission. When you then look at it in another way after the Warren Commission, that these links or these scenarios that they were like putting forward had legs to run. And I think this is where it comes to when we call it the mother of all conspiracy. Is there's so many holes in the assassination, there's so many holes in the lone gunman element, that people then think, well, it's so far-fetched to believe somebody could be on the 6th floor of the book depository in Dallas, fire off 3 shots and kill the president, and then get away until he was captured, and then somehow he died before he came to go to trial. And then you then start looking at the witness statements, some of the footage of the videos that you see from Dealey Plaza, and you start seeing weird anomalies, start seeing weird things that start corresponding to other ways that they believe the assassination happened.
Mm-hmm. So, right, okay, take a scenario where he wasn't killed. Lee Harvey Oswald was not assassinated. Well, he would have obviously been tried. Yep. He would have been found guilty.
He had to die.
At the time, he would have been found guilty.
He had before.
No, I know, but I'm talking about theory. So
he never would have got to trial. I'm sorry.
No, but he might. Right, so take out that he wasn't assassinated, that he went to prison. There would be appeals now on information that's now been found out about this for his innocence, wouldn't there? That's why he had to die.
No, he had to die because his story of how he became and where he'd come from and where he'd seen and what he'd done prior to that moment on the 22nd of November at 12:30 when the shots ringed out over Dealey Plaza in Dallas. There's too many holes in that. There's too many holes in his history. There's too many contradictions about whether he was whether he was working for the US and he was a double agent. His connections between other key prominent figures in the government, in the mob, in the Cuban, in Russia.
Which is why he was found guilty. And death sentence as well, because he's in Texas, don't forget, it's in Dallas.
The thing I'm saying is...
he was going to die anyway.
He was going to die anyway. And to make it clean cut and whatever, I know this sounds like me being the conspiracy theory, but I think there was too many people potentially didn't want him to go to trial, didn't want him to make any evidence, any statements, because once he started to make the statements, that then opens him up to questioning about what he was doing, where did he go, this, that, and the other. Because there's like a scenario, there's not a scenario, there's evidence where 5 minutes before the actual shooting, he's seen on the second floor in the canteen, sitting there eating a sandwich, drinking a Coke, casually sitting there. Eyewitness saw him, and then cool as a cucumber, he's sitting there eating a sandwich. This is 5 minutes before the shooting, and then obviously he then managed to get up 4 floors, get into a position in his sniper's nest on the 6th floor window of the book depository, fire 3 shots over a certain range, hit a pinpoint, and kill the president on a moving motorcade.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I'm saying on that front.
So let's look at this in a little bit more depth. Let's go through the timeline, Carl, of that particular day.
Okay. Right. Let me just think. Okay. 22nd of November. Lee Harvey Oswald goes to work at 7:23 a.m. He's an employee of the book depository in Dallas. He goes to work with his friend, Buell Weasley Frazier, a young worker there. Frazier asked about a long-term wrapping package that Oswald had in his arm. Oh, it's just some curtains, he stated. So this is at 7:23. So he's carrying a large, long object wrapped in wrapping paper, and he just said, oh, it's some curtains. So that's the first thing. So he's gone to work as normal. He's gone to work with his colleague, a young worker that he always went to work with. Then 11:30 a.m. at Love Field in Dallas, Air Force One lands. President Kennedy and the First Lady, Jackie Kennedy, are met by press and crowds of Texans. So this is all on film. 11:45, the motorcade. And the thing about the motorcade, just before they actually got in the motorcade, a decision was made to take the roof off the motorcade.
Yes.
So bear that in mind. They normally don't take the roof off the motorcade.
No, but playing devil's advocate, John Kennedy was very hands-on. He's very touchy-feely. He liked to be close to his people. So if it was a nice day, that order could actually have come from him, going, right, let's take that off. I want to see the people. The people want to see us. Do you know what I mean? So that could have come from him, just playing devil's advocate.
Could have been.
But that's the only point I can play devil's advocate.
Yeah, we don't know that because there's nothing factual that I could find to find the reasons why they took the roof off the motorcade.
I mean, it looks like a nice day in the film, doesn't it?
I know, but also it was the position of the people in the motorcade, because it was an adapted vehicle. Everybody thought that people were sat on the same levels, but the motorcade had a dip in it. So you had Kennedy and Jackie in the back, which was slightly raised. And then in front of them, there was 2 people. You had, on one side, you had the I can't remember the guy's name, white cowboy hat, who was also hit by one of the bullets, which is the magic bullet theory.
The magic bullet. John Connolly.
Texas governor. He was sat there, but he was slightly to one side of the president, but slightly lower. And then obviously in front of that, there was the driver, Secret Service. There wasn't any Secret Service actually, apart from the one in the vehicle. There was a Secret Service car in front, and there was a Secret Service car behind as well. Mm-hmm. So basically, just wanted to point that out about the motorcade. Noon o'clock, they arrived in downtown Dallas. The motorcade headed downtown Dallas, passing through an estimated of 150,000 people. 9:29 p.m. 12:29 p.m. The motorcade and the limo entered Dealey Plaza. Nellie Connolly, who is the wife of the governor, who sat next to her husband, turns to the president and says, "Mr. President, you can't say Dallas doesn't love you.
Mm-hmm.
The motorcade then turns, heading down towards the underpass. And then at 12:30, a bullet strikes the president in the back while he is waving, followed by a second shot to, this is the official account. So the first shot rings out, hits the president in the back while he is waving, followed by a second shot to back of the head of the president. Another shot severely wounds the governor. A man in the crowd, Abraham Zubruga, happens to film the sequence, which is the most incredible, disturbing footage. If you ever watch it, I know it was made famous in the film JFK, but when you watch it and you see, basically, you see the head of the president just go, you see him grip his throat, and goes forward, and then all of a sudden he goes to the left and then to the back.
Hold on 1 second there. I've just shared that into the chat room, everybody. If you're going to click on it, right-click on it. It is disturbing. It is upsetting to watch. So that's the disclaimer there. But I've shared the actual Zapruder film into the chat room, everybody. Right-click takes you into a different link.
So basically, the president's been fatally wounded. The shots have rung out. 12:30. Governor Connolly's been hit as well. The famous shot, which we'll come over to next. We're just going to quickly go back to 12:31, the reaction as Oswald then departs. Hearing what he initially thought to be a firecracker, secret agent Clinton Hill sees the president recoil from the first shot. He runs from the following car. This is the famous shot of the Secret Service agent who Jackie looks like he's trying to help him back onto the back of the car.
Yeah.
But in fact, Jackie is not trying to help the Secret Service agent. Jackie is trying to actually, which is horrifying, reclaim part of John's head off the back of the car. So he then reacts to that. So you see that all in this film. He runs forward, but when he reaches the limousine, the second shot hits the president. So he's reacted to the first shot. He's then run. The second shot is then hit the Kennedy. His leap is too late. The famous shot of him trying to get on and Jackie leaning out the back. Patrolman Maron Barker confronts Oswald in the depository cafeteria at that round about the same time.
So while is the final headshot?
Yeah.
Where's Oswald seen? In the cafeteria.
In the cafeteria. By patrol officer Maron Barker confronts Oswald in the depository cafeteria. Obviously, things are going on. There's obviously radio going on. There's confusion. He gets confronted by this patrol officer, but the building superintendent vouches for him. And Oswald calmly walks out of the book depository and walks several blocks, boards a city bus, and eventually gets into a cab at the bus depot. 1:15, the famous officer Tippett, police officer J.D. Tippett, pulls up Oswald in his car after hearing of a suspect matching in the description. So obviously there's this description being put out between the shots of what's going on. After briefly speaking through an open window, Tippett steps out of his car and was shot 3 times in the chest and once in the temple. 12 people witnessed a man fleeing the scene, and a later 6 identified Oswald as in the police lineup. 1 p.m, Parkland Hospital. Doctors are unable to save the president, who arrives without able to be saved. A Catholic priest administrates the last rite, and the First Lady reportedly held her husband's hand and places one of her rings onto his finger. 1 p.m. So at the same time this has just happened, Oswald walks back to his rooming house, changes his jacket into a more lightly coloured one, and heads back into the street. Seems a bit weird, but obviously might be changing his description. Then at 1:22, on the 6th floor of the book depository, police find a rifle hidden behind a stack of books in a room through an open window, and they work out this was the sniper's lair. 1:30, hearing sirens, Oswald decides to then duck into a Texas theatre without paying and takes a seat for the movie War is Hell. Police receive a tip from the area about a suspicious man matching the description of the patrol officer that got killed. So they're not linking him to the assassination of the president, they're linking him to the murder of this police officer.
Yeah.
1:33, sadly, the assistant White House press secretary announced the president's death, and the press report in real time. 1:45, 15 police officers surround the movie theatre, and 4 officers are needed to subdue Oswald inside. At 1:51, police reported to have him in custody.
It's very fast moving.
Yeah.
When you think about it, it's very fast moving.
Yeah, you're talking a couple of hours. So from the shots to him being captured. So this guy's been busy. He's shot off 3 shots, killed the president, calmly walked down, was initially approached minutes afterwards by a patrol officer, but was vouched by a superintendent, and then left calmly. He's then got on a bus. He then went to the bus depot. He then got into a cab. He went home, changed his jacket, killed a patrol officer, and then decided he'd go and take his seat and watching a film in a theatre.
Yeah, very calm and collected, cold man, this man, right?
2 p.m. evidence. Dallas police paraphernalia tests and confirms that Oswald recently fired a gun. So basically he got gun residue on himself. Oswald's wife later confirmed the rifle found in the depository belonged to her husband. 2:20 Air Force One. The hearse carrying the president arrives at Air Force One. The First Lady, still wearing the clothes with blood spatter from her husband, and the coffin is like a bronze coffin. 2:30, the interrogation for almost 12 hours of Oswald, who denies throughout that he had nothing to do with either the murder or to do with either murder. So he's denying all knowledge in 12 hours of having anything to do with the president's murder or the murder of the police officer. Confronted with photos of himself holding a rifle and a pistol, Oswald is alleged to have sneered, saying that was a fake photo. The famous photo of him holding the gun in his back garden holding a newspaper. By the police. And then he superimposed and said basically his face was superimposed. And he basically eventually stops answering questions at all. 2:38, Lyndon Johnson is sworn in, which is crazy footage, where you have the then vice president being sworn in. Next to him is Jackie Kennedy, still in the clothes, covered in her husband's blood. So he's then sworn in as president. 2:47 on board. Air Force One leaves Dallas and the plane approached Washington. Mrs. Kennedy makes funeral plans. Lyndon Johnson speaks with advisors. Mrs. Kennedy replies to Lady Bird Johnson, the wife of Lyndon Johnson, suggesting change out the blood-stained dress by saying, "Oh no, that's all right. I want them to see what they've done to Jack." 7 p.m. First words. Air Force One lands at Andrews Air Force Base in Maryland. Johnson meets the press, assembles outside, and his first statement as president: "I will do my best. That's all I can do. I ask for help and God." 7:05, the Kennedy family. Robert Kennedy meets the plane. Him and Mrs. Kennedy go to the Naval Hospital, where the body is then autopsied.
A belly button hospital?
Bethesda. Phesda.
An alien hospital. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
7:10. Oswald is then charged with the murder of the police officer. 11:28, Oswald is then finally charged with Kennedy's assassination. November 23rd at 3:56, the president's casket is placed in the East Room of the White House, where it stays under armed guards for 24 hours. Over 2,500 people, including delegates from over 90 countries, attend the funeral a few days later. That is the official timeline.
Okay, so at this point in the show, I want to ask personal opinion. What is your personal opinion, Mark? Because Mark, welcome to the show.
Good evening, hello, welcome, and aliens! There you go.
But no alien link tonight, I feel.
Actually, there is, but I'm not going to do it tonight because of the subject matter.
Oh, right. Oh, well, no, maybe right at the end. Maybe right at the end. Yeah, let's see how it goes, right? Because we have to have an alien link in there. It's Friday at the end of the day, right? So, personal opinion on this. In regards to your personal belief system regarding JFK's assassination or murder or tragic death, what's yours? What's your personal opinion?
My own opinion, I think he was taken out by his own government because he was going to do something extremely silly in the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Or not silly. And Carl?
I personally do not believe in the lone gunman theory. I have actually stood in the 6th floor depository window. I've looked at it, which you now can't do because there's a big perspex box around it. Because as I came into the room, which is now the Kennedy Museum, and I walked in and there was this big American Texas cowboy hat, walked up, looked in the window and went, hell no. And I was like, and walked away, and I did exactly the same. You look out the window, I can't see that this guy could have fired 3 shots in that period of time and hit the president. I personally believe that in the multiple gunman theory. I'm torn whether it was his own government in connection with. I think it was his own government, his own agencies.
Yeah.
In conjunction with another party, whether because there's too much information on links to the mob, because what him and Bobby Kennedy what were planning on doing, but there's also the links between Russia and Cuba as well.
I'll tell you a little bit of thing. There is a link to the Majestic 12 with Kennedy. And allegedly, and this is all supposition, a letter was found in the fireplace of a former CIA director, Alan Dulles, who was the CIA director under Kennedy. And apparently he threatened to reveal the truth about aliens to the world, but everybody was going, nope, nobody's ready for it yet, and he just said, well, tough, and then he was taken out. But in that letter it talks about wet work being done, and wet work is CIA slang, and actually it's pretty much well known. Wet work is assassination, but it talks about Kennedy and aliens and Majestic 12 and wet work.
See,
so
I don't go. I mean, when we was looking at this earlier on, we found 10 different types of conspiracy theories surrounding this.
There's some wild ones.
There are some absolute batshit ones out there. Oh, sorry. Yeah. I said it. I'm going to get told off again. I know, I'm going to get told off again.
Sorry, can I just say something? Talking about, as we say, bat-esque crazy conspiracy.
Batguano.
Me personally, the conspiracy, and this is probably hard to believe because obviously myself and Mark think quite a lot like each other. The whole alien part of it, I think, is probably one of the most bat-esque conspiracy that possibly could be out there.
No, I agree, because one of the other ones I've heard is that on an original timeline, he buggered up with the Cuban Missile Crisis and called a thermonuclear war, Third World War, and then we in the future, because theoretically time travel is possible, and they've proved it's possible by moving a couple of atoms somewhere. They don't know where they went, so that's good. But apparently they developed devices, came back in time and took him out just to prevent World War III.
Oh, that's my goodness me.
the conspiracy the ones that have more in my eyes. I know
that one and the alien ones comes up with I need my tablets, nurse.
Friday night.
Yeah, definitely.
Aliens, no.
No. We are discounting aliens on this one, but we knew you'd find a link, didn't we, Carl?
It's down to time travel.
It's my job.
It's time travel or aliens. I think I'd rather go with government mob link problems.
Can I just
he has enough on his plate without adding aliens into the mix, Mark. I mean, come on, he had Vietnam, the Russia, Cuba, the mob. God.
We all have our little hobbies, you know. Why have you got a ghost on your camera?
No, I know. But I think my main feelings from myself point of view, and I've been fascinated, which kind of freaked out my primary school teacher, because we were asked to do a project when I was 9, and everybody else was doing projects on famous things in history, and it was like the Olympics, the World Cup, and I did the Kennedy assassination. And I did a painting.
That answers so many questions.
I did a painting, and I had the whole motorcade, and I painted the final shot where Jackie is in a pink dress, climbing
it was red afterwards.
Motorcade, and all that. And I've been fascinated through it since I was 9. So I've been fascinated for a hell of a long time.
I do not believe the London
view on it.
See, I came into this through the film, the Oliver Stone film, the JFK, and Jim Garrison.
Very, very good film.
Very, very emotive film. And then I went into reading Jim Garrison's book on the topic. And I have to say, I bought into that. I bought into that a lot.
Yeah. Well, Jim Garrison, obviously, he was the district attorney of New Orleans, or Louisiana. He was brought on, and he's the famous one that brought the Zubriga film, and he stands in front of it, and he says, to the left, to the back, as Kennedy's final done. And some of the stuff that he uncovered, and it's all in his book, and it's all in his report, it's all in his testimony, it's all documented.
It's all in his what?
Sorry?
It's all in his what?
Testimony.
Oh, testimony. Okay, just checking. I thought you were being rude. Okay, carry on.
Testimony. And I think because of the disaster that happened at the Bay of Pigs, cost a lot of American soldiers their lives. I think that was the starting point.
It annoyed a lot of people. A lot of people lost a lot of money.
Lost a lot of money. A lot of companies lost a lot of face. Government agencies lost a lot of face. Complete disaster. Loads of people that died in that, American soldiers, man, and it was all down to Kennedy, etc. And then obviously the Cuban Missile Crisis and everything like that. And I think it just snowballed, and a decision was then made. Whoever made the decision, that he had to go. And I think plans were then put into place, and I personally think it wasn't a lone gunman. I personally believe it was multiple
shooters.
Kills. No, because when you look at it, the spot that he was killed was the perfect kill triangle.
Well, that's what they said. If it was Lee Harvey Oswald, he would have gone for the shot down the Houston Boulevard, as he came towards him, not after he turned that corner. If you turn that corner, it's a better triangular shoot zone than it was down Houston. Now, if you're a lone gunman, you're going to take the best shot for you, aren't you? You're not going to wait until it's passed into a different area. Plus, isn't there something to do with the tree that's outside?
The thing is, when you look down the boulevard when they came in, the vehicle would have been coming at a very slow rate, because it was traveling at a very slow rate. He would have had more time, more opportunity for a clear headshot from the position he was in that didn't have any obstruction. But he for some reason waited until it turned, and then you've got this tree, this famous tree. which is still there to this day. And it was it obscured it. It had to then come out of...
Do you know what else is there? Come on, it's me. I'm not going to take anything too seriously. I want to know all about the grassy knoll, because Kerry said she's got a grassy mound as well.
Knoll second, Mark, because I've stood on the knoll, I've stood in the book depository, I've stood on the spot that Kennedy died. I've got a funny little anecdote about that particular thing, which I'll tell you in a moment. But to believe that a lone gunman waited, he had umpteen minutes of a clear shot, straight down, headshot, and he decided to wait until it turned, and then he had one of the hardest shots, and he fired 3 shots in split seconds.
Not with that rifle, he didn't.
Well, they've tested it. It is possible.
If you're a spot-on sharpshooter, he wasn't.
Which he was.
Yeah, but with his mental state and everything.
But that's the thing. People said he wasn't in a mental state.
I thought he'd been tested, like, when he went through his military career. I thought when he got tested in that, it proved that he wasn't the shot. He just didn't have that ability. Contradiction.
One report says he was the best. Then all of a sudden he then got washed out. But then all of a sudden he's then defected to Russia via Cuba. Defected into Russia. He then was allowed back into the US with his Russian bride, because his then wife was Russian, and he was just allowed to, after he defected, was just allowed open armed come back in. So some strings must have been pulled. There's a famous documented case of the receptionist who met him in the Russian consulate, who remembers him coming in, remembers talking to him, remembers him going in for a meeting, remembers him leaving. Her statement is the only thing that is officially documented. What was discussed when he came in and afterwards has disappeared, has gone. Nothing.
It does sound very strange. Some of the things, when you look into Lee Harvey Oswald, you do kind of think, why? Particularly, but when you look at the time, you've got to put yourself in the time frame. It was very anti-communism back then. Even John F. Kennedy being accused of being soft on communism, hadn't he? So it wasn't... People left America, high people left America because they were accused of being communists. So this is all in this time period. So it does seem strange that somebody's deflected to Russia and then let back into the USA. Now, the question is... none of us think there was a lone gunman, let alone Lee Harvey Oswald. But do you think he maybe put out one shot? Maybe he was part of the triangle?
I reckon he was under the impression that he was part of a team, and he was basically... I'm saying he fired... Because there are reports that there was more than 3 shots. And the reason it gets looked at and sort of poo-pooed is because of the echo effect, because of how the makeup of the Dealey Plaza is, with the echo around the buildings.
Because they say that John F. Kennedy reacts first of all and thinks it's a car backfiring, and that's the first shot. The second shot... I
think that was probably the first shot that hit him was probably Lee Harvey Oswald.
No,
but he got hit in the back, and he got hit in the back of the neck, and he went holding his throat. But
that's the second shot. The third shot,
the magic bullet.
The third shot is the magic bullet, right? Then the fourth shot is the headshot.
Well, this is the thing. This is the contradiction. Some people say there was only 3 shots. Some people say there was 4 shots.
I've heard 5 because wasn't there somebody nicked by a bullet in a underpass?
Yeah, but they think that was possibly caused by a shot that basically ricocheted off the tarmac.
Yeah, that's 5 shots then.
No, same shot. Through and through. Ricochet, hit somebody.
Ricochet.
There's a lot of damage done by 3 bullets then.
Well, the best thing about it, if you're going to talk about the bullet, is the pristine bullet that was found in the gurney at the hospital, on the gurney that the president was, and was found a pristine bullet that was basically dubbed the magic bullet. This bullet is supposed to have been fired, entered the president, exited the president, went into the governor, exited the governor, and then was then back into the president. So basically the trajectory was like, it's supposed to have gone like a pinball. We've gone bang, 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 and then suddenly, pristine. There's no riot. There's rifling. It matches the gun that Lee has, but it doesn't look like it's ever been hit anything. You think of the amount of things that thing could have hit going through two bodies, but it came out pristine.
Well, it shattered John Connolly's wrist, didn't it? So if you think a bullet hits a bone,
well,
there's going to be.
First.
I know, but there's going to be. But there's going to be damage. What I'm saying is hitting bones. We know it's hitting bones because it shattered his wrist. Mark?
I was going to say, the magic bullet theory, complete and utter rubbish. The only bullet that can actually bounce around inside the skull and not exit the skull is a 2-2. I know the rounds that you use, that's the only one that can be used because it's favoured by assassins, because it will hit the skull and bounce back, and hit the skull and bounce back, and it chops the brain out.
The magic bullet isn't the one they're saying hit the skull. This is what they're saying.
No, but none of the ones that hit him were 2-2s. That's what I'm saying.
Oh yeah, no. But this bullet that this secret agent found in the gurney that was then presented to the Warren Commission was spots.
So Lee Harvey Oswald was part of the shooter team, and then they needed a scapegoat, and he was the scapegoat.
But so, where are the bullets now? Are they still around, or have they gone missing?
It's a bit like where's Kennedy's brain?
I know, right?
Yeah, that's gone missing as well.
Lots of things have gone missing on this one.
Where are all the autopsy photos? They were taken by the people at the hospital, and then a member of the Secret Service took all the doctor's notes, all the photographs, all the records, and was told that's it, and took them away literally there and then.
What's your theory on the babushka woman?
Who?
Woman in very strange clothing for that weather and holding a brolly up.
No. The brolly is a bloke.
Yeah, there's a man who's got a black umbrella.
She was taking photos, wasn't she?
She was taking photos. Yes. She was the closest person to the motorcade.
And she's never been found.
And she was you could see her taking photos. Those
right.
photos, to my knowledge, have never been found.
That's right.
She's never been found.
Or identified.
But the strange thing is, when you talk about the umbrella, which is another conspiracy theory, there's a person who's seen across the road from just in front of the grassy knoll, who's seen smartly dressed gentlemen who is seen opening and closing an umbrella. Very, very strangely. Yeah. It's on film. There is actually other photos of this gentleman opening and closing an umbrella. Why? Because the weather didn't determine or needed a brolly.
Well, it was a bright sunny day, and it's like the babushka woman dressed up in a heavy winter coat and a headscarf and everything.
Yeah, which potentially...
Maybe they feel the cold, you know?
The way the woman was dressed, you can sort of put off, and potentially Eastern European living in America used to dress exactly the same way day in, day out. But the bloke opening and closing an umbrella for no apparent reason, was that a sign? And then you mentioned about the grassy knoll.
Yes.
Well, we all love a good grassy mound, don't we, Ken?
Yeah, we do all love a grassy knoll. But the thing about the grassy knoll is, when the shots rung out, you see people running, and you see police officers running towards the grassy knoll, because you see there's a famous photo of behind the picket fence where the train yard is, behind the grassy knoll. You see smoke coming up. And they said there was firing coming from that. And there's a famous statement from a gentleman who was in one of the control rooms towers in the stockyard, who saw a smartly dressed gentleman leaning over the fence seconds before the shots rang out, who is then seen disappearing. and he then later dies before his testimony. Before he actually testified, he then dies in a car crash. So there's people saying they saw or heard and seen a shot coming from the grassy knoll. There's also a photograph which I recently found while doing the research for this, and it's a picture of the motorcade coming past from an angle, looking up towards the grassy knoll. And I sent it to Kerry, and when you zoom in, obviously it pixelates out. You can't actually see whether he has got anything in his arm, but he's in a very, very distinctive pose.
Yes.
And you have to send me a copy of that photo.
Yeah.
And the pose, to me, looks like the typical hand in front of a rifle and the arm out, tucked in and down the sights of a gun.
It does look like, and even to my uneducated eye, in regards to firearms and stuff, it does look like someone holding a rifle.
But the good thing about it is it's a photo, and you've got the motorcade coming through. You can see Kennedy in there, and this is literally, I think, either just after the shots or during the shots. This photograph is, we don't know who took it, and the woman you mentioned, Mark, you can see her in the foreground. That's why they say she was the closest person to the motorcade. Have you got it, Mark?
What, when, how?
The photo.
Not coming through.
Hang on.
No.
We can't share it into the chat room, unfortunately, this photo, so we're going to carry on. But it is a very interesting photograph, in all honesty. And it's not one I'd seen before in relation to the assassination at all. But there are strange reports about a lot of different strange people around that time, isn't there? There's people doing strange things like the Umbrella Man. There are strange reports of people challenging people and them showing Secret Service like papers, but they don't look like they fit Secret Service, what you would expect from the Secret Service. There's a lot of what they classed as transients was brought into it at one point.
Because they rounded up a load of people in the stockyard behind the grassy knoll, all these transients. And there was this one gentleman who was in a very nice suit, in shoes, that was rounded up with all the other people, who showed some papers to the police officers that rounded these people up, and then was let go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen the photo now, and yeah, you're right. It does look like that. But my only one problem with that is the right arm is way too high for taking a shot. That's the only. It might have happened just afterwards. I don't know, but that's the only problem I've got with that photo. But the rest of it is spot on for somebody taking aim. It is a very
it is interesting, but you don't know, like you say, at what point that was taken. It could be on the recoil. It could be as he's getting into position and he's. We don't know. It might not even be that. It could be something completely different. It could just be pareidolia that makes it look like that.
Yeah. It could be dancing during the Macarena. I don't know.
Exactly. We don't know, but it is an interesting photograph, which is a shame I can't share it into the chat room, unfortunately. Now, going forward with this, a lot of people who were part of the investigation into this have died. I mean, I know now they've died, obviously, because it was a few years ago and everything, right? But there's mysterious circumstances surrounding some key witnesses, aren't there? But when I was looking through the list, if you took a random group of people, particularly with some of the people that they had interviewed, some of it doesn't surprise me. Like the mob links there, a lot of those, there's got murdered next to it, or suspicious car accident or something like that. Those kind of things don't surprise me with that kind of person and that kind of lifestyle they lead. But there are some where you go, that's a bit weird.
Yeah, you've got hit by a Dallas bus. The Texas employee that actually interviewed Oswald in the canteen.
It's all aliens. I'm telling you.
But you look at this, and this research that we got literally goes back to November '63. So the same month Kennedy got assassinated, and it literally goes through up until 1975. And how many people are on the list?
Lots.
Oh, hell, loads.
Schedules.
And all these people were in the Warren Report, right? All these people are witness statements or LinkedIn.
They had the Warren Report. They were linked to that. They were linked to everything. They had something, or they did an interview. They gave a statement, or they had something to do with the event.
Mm-hmm. So when you look at this, it is very interesting. Coincidence? Possibly.
It's a list of the world's most unluckiest people. That's what it is.
Or it could just be coincidence. If you took a cross-section from anybody involved in a big event like that, who knows what you'd find. It's either... I find it a little strange, but it is... it could be coincidental. Could be.
The whole thing with the JFK assassination is because there's so many crackpot theories and this, that and the other out there, at the end of the day, any sane, rational person's, like we're trying to do, we all know he was taken out. We all know he did something extremely bad and he peed off the wrong people, and they're like, right, take him out. It wasn't a lone gunman at all. It was at least 2 or 3, and he was taken out for a really good reason. But we don't know why. We never will know why, because nobody's ever going to see any of those files because they've probably been burnt in someone's fireplace.
No, they've been released.
But they've been redacted. Obviously, recently, because I was talking to Kerry before the show, the biggest amount of files to do with the Kennedy assassination were released back in 2017, the highest number of files, because obviously the American government have this statutory where
that's right, yeah,
a certain period of time they release the files unless it's to do with government interest, current government interest. And Trump tweeted, which is weird, saying the president tweets, but I know Trump does, tweeted about hopefully
he's
now...
He's got spell check, he's okay.
Yeah, but he tweeted about hopefully this will about opening up eyes and stuff like that. That's the only tweet he's ever done about the Kennedy assassination, was when these failed. But you look at the files that were put out, and everything is just black line. It's all redacted. You don't really see an awful lot, but there are strange stuff in those files. But you think the Warren Commission, how big that was, and that was a small part of it, and that was like 30, 40, 50 journals of the Warren Commission.
And that just focused on the event itself, didn't it? It didn't focus on the political background or anything. It literally was looking at the event.
Yeah, there's millions and millions of pieces of paper to do with the Kennedy assassination, reports, CIA reports, various reports from various different people to do with the mob link, to do with the thing in the JFK film. If anybody's watched the JFK film, there's the thing about John Candy's character in the film, the guy who had the wig, who was part of a black op CIA team, who had I can't remember the character. I can't remember the guy that played him. Short guy.
Pesky.
Joe Pesci. Yeah. Joe Pesci. His character.
Or in my world, Pesky.
I think the actual guy's name was Ferry. And everything to do with that. And the thing that caught my eyes when I was looking at this mysterious people that died, you look at the list and you look at the amount of people that had associations with David Ferry that have died in plane crashes, car crashes, unknown events, etc., etc. And that is the thing that gets me, is that those characters in that particular element of it, and Oswald had links to David Ferry because there's a photograph of them when they're in the military, and they're both in the same photo. Mm-hmm. But he denied all knowledge of having anything and knowing who Oswald was. So, like I said when we first started this isn't going to be a quick, we're going to tell you the facts, and this is what we're actually going to tell you who shot Kennedy. No, you need to go. Anybody listening needs to go out and look at this stuff, and then start looking at. You can read it on face value, but then when you start opening the pages and looking at the weird deaths, the contradiction in witness statements, the weird events during the effect. The thing that gets me about it is if this guy'd shot Kennedy, and seconds before the shots rang out, he's sitting there eating a sandwich and drinking a Coca-Cola in a canteen, 4 floors down. So he would have had to run up in a matter of about 3 or 4 minutes, got in position, got his breathing sorted, fired off 3 shots, killed Kennedy, then calmly walked out and got confronted by a patrol officer, then walked out, went home, changed his jacket, got into another vehicle, got into a bus, shot a copper, went to the thing. Really?
Yeah, exactly.
And on that note, we have actually come to the end of the show, guys. No. I know, we could have gone on for hours on this one. But I have to say, do your own research on this one, because it is a fascinating topic and it keeps people's imaginations going even to this day. And I think the majority of people these days do not believe the lone gunman theory. Now, lads, what are we talking about next week? Anybody? Can we remember?
Does anybody know?
Illuminati.
The only reason I haven't been my usual self today is because of the subject matter. Because
exactly.
we do get listened to in America, and I'm not going to sit there and start taking the mickey and being my usual crackpot self. I'll do the odd one, but because of it involves somebody's death, I won't. But next week, guaranteed, I'll be back to my usual.
No, that's something that we said before the show came on, and in other radio shows that we've done on the lead up, talking about tonight's show. Yes, it's the Dark Mirror show. Yes, we have the off-the-wall approach to our subjects, but because this material is... because it's still modern. It's not so long ago. There's still people alive that is associated with this. I wanted it to be a look at the evidence. I wanted to give it people go, hang on, let me have a look at it. Let me draw my own conclusion. Mm-hmm. Yes, there are some weird and wonderful, wacky time travel, aliens, the Marilyn Monroe conspiracy that she got him killed and all this sort of stuff. Craziness, which we could have done and we could have put our twist to it. But because of the subject matter, I personally, and I know Kerry and I know Mark as well, want to do it in the way we've done it. We've given you the facts. We've told you some areas that we think have flaws in them. Mm-hmm. Hopefully you guys can then, listening, can actually then draw your own conclusions, or even then look into it, because I've been a big fan since... Not a big fan, because that sounds like yay, President got killed. No, I'm talking about... I've been fascinated with this whole assassination and the Kennedy, and at the end of the day, the assassination of the US president doesn't happen that often.
No, and I have to say, I find this particular topic quite fascinating too. And anyway, another one I find quite fascinating is the Illuminati. That's what we're going to be talking about next week, and I'm sure that'll be back to our normal fun and frolics on a Friday.
You've got to say it in Dr. Evil's voice, Dr. Evil from Austin Powers. You've got to. The Illuminati.
See, I can't do it like you do it.
$100 million.
And on that note, we hope you enjoyed tonight's show. Thank you, Carl. Wealth of information on that one.
That's right. It's like I said, it's just one of my little... I didn't have to do much research.
No, he didn't. I knew he had this all over. Me and Mark just went, off you go, Carl.
And literally, normally when I do the shows, I have some sort of research. The only thing I had was like the timeline, the actual times. Everything else, it was pretty much...
He knows it.
Looked at it, seen it, done it. I even still have the project I did when I was 9.
Oh, that's so cute.
And I must admit,
a 9-year-old Carl.
You look at it now, and to be truthfully honest, a 9-year-old painting an assassination.
A little worrying, everybody. A little worrying. It's what I get to work with, right?
Even down to Jackie's pink dress. And I
claret everywhere.
Batters and everything over it, and I had Kennedy's head exploding. But
beautiful.
I still have it. Very, 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 very strange.
On that note, my beautiful people, let's say goodnight to the listening audience. So good night, guys.
Good night.
Good night, and remember, next week is the Illuminati. Normal
Thank you
nuttiness
for
will be
listening.
resumed.
Don't forget to join us for more shows throughout the week. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and the World Wide Web to keep up to date with all the shows right here on Parasearch Radio.